All right, guys. Welcome back to Waxing On. As you see, Dr. Kelly McCoy just had a big birthday. 70 years old, can you imagine? I'm almost as old as rock and roll. And maybe that's why I love it so much. It's we had a couple of great parties, a couple of great get-togethers. And at one of the parties I was at, a person came up and was talking to me. We were talking about music, of course. And they said, the first album I had was a Beatles album. And it got me thinking, the first album I had was the Beatles' second album, the Long Tall Sally. And often on the show I've talked about where I was exposed to great artists, where I first got listening to certain bands. And I talked about places like Saturday Night Live, PBS with their soundstage and programs like that. But then I got thinking, my first album was the Beatles album. That was the early 1960s. One of the shows that introduced me to so much music, and I know looking at the demographics for my program here, a lot of you are in the same boat as me. You're getting around my age. We all saw some of the greatest bands in the world go across the stage on the Ed Sullivan Show. This was long before a lot of the other variety shows were even on TV, and this was back in the days when I was able to get like 3 channels on TV. We had none of the streaming. There were no cable networks. It was just antenna and hope the weather was good. But I think back like on Ed Sullivan, British Invasion especially, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Eric Burdon and the Animals. There's other great bands on there. The Love and Spoonful. We had the Byrds, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Smothers Brothers, Sonny and Cher. I mean, anybody who is anybody was on Sullivan's stage. And I was introduced to so much music then. And I think that's what got me started, either listening or playing, because by the time I was 10, I was teaching myself guitar, I had a ukulele, I was learning how to play piano. There was all this music in my life, and that was mainly because of the bands I saw on his show, because these other shows didn't exist at those times, and even the networks didn't have those kind of programs. When I was growing up, there were lots of variety shows, lots of exposure to bands and entertainment. We're kind of missing that now. We don't see a lot of musical shows. Saturday night, yeah, they still have some guests. Austin City Limits, thank goodness they're still going. There's a few things on PBS that really contribute to that. But we don't see music like we used to in the 60s. And that really introduced a lot of us to buying records, listening to music, learning how to play, man. How many of us actually picked up an instrument after we'd seen some of these bands? I know I did. I'm sure there's a few of you out there the same way. We thought we could all be rock stars. And I'll tell you, I find now in this age I have, you got a lot of aches and pains. I got some other things you deal with. Nothing like putting on some great music to make you forget all of that. I go to rehearsal with a big band or I play a concert and everything's great. I have no pain, I have no sickness, I have nothing to worry about. It's just 2 hours of bliss when that music starts. And like I say, I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about in this. It's a great healing power. And I also got thinking, when I thought of all the bands he introduced us to, I'm thinking, you look back and think, aren't we lucky to have shared the world with some of these performers? Can you imagine I grew up in the same world, the same time as George, Paul, and Ringo, the Love and Spoonful, Jerry Garcia, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. I mean, you take a look at some of those great guitarists, Eric Clapton. I mean, all these guys, we all grew up in the same world at the same time. Boy, how lucky I was to live in this generation. And to me, there's nothing more exciting than hearing those bands again. The music of the 60s and the 70s just revitalizes me, it relaxes me, it allows me to wash away all those other worries in the day. And I know some of you understand what I'm talking about. So today's episode, just reflecting back, I'm 70 years old, a lot of years behind me, a lot of music I've been exposed to, and that's the idea of what I'm trying to do with the show. Give you a chance to go back and revisit some of those great memories, some of those great albums, because now with streaming, everybody's catalog is on there, and usually you've got a full catalog to pick from. You can go back and enjoy some of the greatest music that was ever made, and I'm going to stand by that. I mean, I look at things like the Beatles 50 years ago or 60 years ago. They cranked out some tunes that still are exciting, still feel people with a certain energy. I hate to say this, but I can't think the music these days is going to stand up as well in 50 years. Maybe it will, maybe it'll prove me wrong. But the music from the 60s and 70s, and even into the 80s, brings a certain joy and excitement. And if you haven't had a chance to go back and check it out, we're not talking old-timey music. We're talking the birth of a whole history of music that's been built on over the last few years. So go back, look at my episodes. We profile a lot of different albums, a lot of different artists. Go on to some of the streaming networks. Check out somebody you haven't heard of before. Check out somebody you've forgotten about and haven't listened to in a while. I had an episode just the other day, Janis Joplin, when she was a big brother of the holding company, the Cheap Thrills album. And one of the comments I got back was, one of the listeners said, "Boy, you jogged my memory. I forgot about that album. I went right out and bought a copy." I mean, nothing makes me feel better than that. Get out there and get a chance to listen to that. Remember some of the stuff that, brought excitement to your life years ago. Music from your teens, music from your young adulthood, music just from your whole life. Go back and explore that, enjoy it, and keep tabs on the episodes. I'm saying go back on the old ones right now, but we will be having fresh new episodes up shortly. But the idea of the whole series of Waxing On is to expose everybody to some of the greatest music there ever was, in my opinion. So hope you enjoy it. Look forward to seeing you shortly with some new episodes. Till then, take care, stay safe. We'll see you soon.